rather not, and I guess one of the concerns I had about the bill was rather not it recognizes the commonly accepted exceptions. We're going to make someone go through with a pregnancy if they've been raped or victim of incest, or if the health of the
abortion in this Constitution, but it leaves all those issues in your hands.
The answer is no. It does not.
No.
It doesn't bring in those common.
Well, we have another question. Representative Dubuisson.
Thank you, Chairman. I am pro-life, but to Representative Jenkins' question, I'm still not comfortable with that either. I believe that there should be exceptions. So what I heard you say is that we would then, as lawmakers, have to come back and do another.
It stays with you.
Yeah, let me say this to answer everyone's question on the exceptions. Roe versus Wade, the exceptions are still in place.
That's right.
Because we cannot prime federal law. Can't usurp it. And right now, the Supreme Court decision still stands. So you can't overturn that, nor can you overturn
this. This legislation, this proposed constitutional amendment does not at all change one thing about how abortion is practiced in the state, even after it passes, if Roe versus Wade is reversed. But this does not directly challenge Roe. It doesn't change one thing about abortion law. Now or in the future.
Committee and lied. I've been misleading. If Roe versus Wade is overturned, our Louisiana Constitution would not allow for any laws to be. But I know there's a time that I'm advocating all over the nation for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. So with that, if it is, this provision would not allow for any laws to be passed, still be recognized in Louisiana. If it ever came to a point where the federal laws no longer recognized exceptions, then recognize exceptions. So if the federal government doesn't recognize exceptions, well, the federal laws, then we wouldn't recognize exceptions. But I can tell you this, I don't think it'll ever be in a time in Louisiana, because our legislature is overwhelmingly pro-life, that we would recognize anything or any right to abortion that the federal laws did. Disingenuous with my answer. If it ever comes to a point where the federal laws no longer recognize exceptions, then Louisiana wouldn't either. At this point, we don't recognize them. There's nothing in our law that recognizes them, and that's why it's very important that I state that there's never been anything in Louisiana law that recognizes exceptions. And I would venture to say, unless there's a major shift in the legislature, you're not going to find a majority of legislators that will pass.
This committee today is, I hope you all will give some thoughts to the impact of the exceptions, and not just have a blanket, a law out there with no exception to it at all. So that's my point. Okay.
And I understand your concerns. I think I know what our lead counsel has said is this: right now, Louisiana law does not recognize exceptions. The federal law does. But at any point that Roe versus Wade is overturned, or any of the federal law regarding it is overturned, then the Louisiana legislature will have an opportunity, or anyone in the legislature, to bring a bill, even if this passes, to determine whether or not there are exceptions. But right now, nowhere in Louisiana law is there exceptions, because it's recognized in federal law. And the right to abortion is recognized in federal law. And so if Roe versus Wade is ever overturned, what lead counsel has said is that this legislature will then determine whether or not to pass statutes or anything.
And we'll be able to handle that, with people that come to the table who are perhaps conceived in rape, or women who were traumatized by the abortion just as much they were traumatized by the rape. And so those type of things deserve a hearing in the legislative committee,